During the night, a cold rain covers the protagonist and an unknown girl. The drops fall on the girl and she, with an emotionless face, tells him that she is happy to die with him. The beautiful girl seen earlier is dancing gracefully. The protagonist is sitting in his office admiring a video clip of the girls. He is obviously lonely, but that doesn't make him sad in the least. Our hero's name is Reiji. We learn from the fact that he is called into the room, called by a certain teacher called Shinoba. Keep this character in mind, he will play a good role in this manga in the future. Shinoba tells Kurose to sit down, and then asks him about his hopes for employment, since his grades show that he's obviously going to a private college. Reiji tells Shinoba that he cannot leave this town. The teacher talks about his family being his mother, his older brother, his grandmother, and himself, Reiji. The teacher asks Reiji about his brother. His brother comes from a distant background. His grandmother is also cognitively impaired. Reiji's mother does a lot of things while working as a nurse. Reiji says that he wants to start working earlier and make his life a little easier. Shinoba's teacher doesn't think so. She suggests that Reiji should talk to his mother. Maybe she wants Reiji to continue his studies? This question worries Shinoba. The street. Reiji is run over by a pedestrian. All the inhabitants don't understand what's wrong with the weather. They think the typhoon is coming because of the typhoon. Reiji says goodbye to the people we don't know and gets on the bus. First, Reiji looks at the beautiful fields of his town, then he takes out his wired headphones and puts them in his ears. He switches on the idol group acrylic. Meanwhile, a slightly overweight girl enters the bus and takes one of the earphones out of the protagonist's ears. Her name is Cheiko. We find out when the protagonist talks to her. She realizes that Rei is also interested in acrylic. They get off the bus and Cheiko blurts out that she wants to go to Tokyo for an acrylic concert. Cheiko starts a discussion about how someone who was kind in a past life would have been Aoeiji Nagi. And Cheiko herself was definitely a villain, having been born in that godforsaken place. A fat, dwarfed, ugly, stubbly, short-sighted otaku. That's exactly what Cheiko claims. 100% evil, like the one who killed 30 people in Tsuyama. Rei has no idea who she's talking about. Cheiko says that in her next life she will definitely be a beautiful girl in Tokyo, because she is smart, #1 among high school girls in the prefecture. She has many favorite things to do and is always having fun. Rei asks Cheiko if she got into an institute in Tokyo, but Cheiko is happy to report that she passed all her exams at Waseda. Rei is happy for her and rejoices. Cheiko asks where Rei is going next, and he replies that today was orientation, so he says that he wants to get results in this city. The wind picks up and Chako asks Rei if he has thought about leaving the city. After all, there are many different circumstances, such as marital status. She turns around, smiles and says that his life is his property. Rei is taken aback by Chako and is in complete shock. He thanks her and says she's right. Two women approach our heroes and ask if a certain suicide chasm is far away. Rei doesn't understand, but Chako is happy to show her the way. The two women thank them. Cheiko says that these ladies are on a sacred pilgrimage from Asmori Kosaku's spring coffin. Rei asks, "What is that?" Cheiko is an otaku who reads a lot of manga. She says that as a true fan of Asamori Kosaku, she has a whole shelf of his books. Rei says he doesn't read novels, and Chuck explains, Suicide Abyss is a legend. The book says that everyone in this town will one day jump into the water and never come up again. It's more like a folk rave, a suicide rave. About suicide by conspiracy. At the beginning of the Edo period, a traveler wandered into a village in the mountains. Because of her beauty, she fell in love with the men of the village, and there was one with whom everything was mutual. The other villagers became very jealous and began to interfere with the lovers. The villagers would not let them leave the village or marry. Finally, during a night storm, the lovers jumped into the river. The place where their bodies were dumped was called Suicide Chasm. That's where the novel is set. Now it's become something of a pilgrimage site. Maybe this manga will be made into a film. Cheiko even teases that they could call this town Suicide Pride and then their backwater would be revitalized. The heroes decide to keep their heads down. Rei gets a message that there are guests, and the sender also sends a cigarette. He tells Chako that he has to leave. Cheiko realizes it's Minegishi-kun and gives him the bill. She says she only wants to pay back her debt. She asks Rei if he has paid back enough. He slowly replies, "Let's not break our bond." He asks, "What do you think, Chako?" and thanks her, then leaves. Rei goes to a supermarket and buys Night Star's cigarettes. It's dark. Rei goes into a strange place where he's waved to by a man he doesn't know. Rei gives him a pack of cigarettes. This guy is Minageshi, and he seems to be bullying our hero. Minageshi asks where another pack of cigarettes is, to which Rei apologizes with a smile. One of Minageshi's friends asks him who it is. Minageshi replies that it's just a childhood friend, while asking Rei if that's true. Rei, suppressing his feelings, says yes. He tells his childhood friend to hurry up and sends him off to get cigarettes again. He goes to the shop and asks to be sold 9 stars cigarettes again. He reaches out to confirm his age, but the clerk says they don't sell to people in uniform. Rei is startled as it's the first time she's ever spoken. Chuck tells Gino that they won't sell to him because he's in uniform, but he just says he needs 3 more packs. The hero remembers protecting Chaco when he was a kid, and he thinks it's not help, it's a favor. Chaco will pay his debt and go to Tokyo without hindrance, and the hero will serve Gino as king in that city. Forever, this debt. Rei returns home, to a 2-story building. One of the flats in this building is his family's flat. His mother greets him with a smile, telling him that she changed his grandmother's nappy and where to wipe it. He hears his brother getting angry at their mother and hitting him. His mother comes in and asks Rei-kun to go get some chicken, and asks him to run to the store quickly. Rei agrees and says he'll also get a bento box. Rei's mother thanks Rei and says she would have died without him. Rei says goodbye to her. The street. Dark night. Street lights. He's standing at the suicide chasm. He wonders if he jumps, will he die? After all, the lovers jumped into the river during the night storm. Their bodies were found here, hence the name Suicide Chasm. He arrives at the same shop where he tried to buy cigarettes and sees the shop assistant leaving the shop. He sees a man following her and thinks it's dangerous, so he follows. He sees the girl giving the bento to a homeless man who didn't sell it. The homeless man walks away and winks at him. The girl lights a cigarette and says he must have changed into street clothes. Rei says, well, is he a student? The girl says he only has to smoke once. The girl gives the boy a light and the boy looks at the girl's face. He remembers where he saw her before. It's Aoi Nagi. He asks her if it's true. Aoi didn't think anyone would know me in a place like this. She thinks the guy is an idol connoisseur. He asks what she's doing in a place like this. Aoi says it's a secret. She puts a cigarette in Rei's mouth and lights it with her own. She tells him to inhale. He inhales, exhales. The fire is lit. The boy stands with a cigarette between his teeth. His death has begun. Acrylic is a group of 4 people. The average age of the members is 17 and a half. Although they are not yet media personalities, they are slowly gaining popularity, with Aoi Nagi standing out as particularly beautiful. It's Chaco's explanation that Rei remembers. Rei doesn't understand what an idol is doing in her town, why she works around the clock. Aoi says he seems docile and quiet, but he also knows her band. It turns out that he didn't come to get cigarettes for himself. Rei tells her about a friend who knows the Aoi dolls well. Rei says that if they met, Chaco would die of jealousy. But that's why it's a secret, Aoi informs him. Rei reminds him that he has to hurry, he has to fulfill a request, but he would like to talk to her longer. Aoi stops him, asking him to keep what he saw a secret. It's about the man she gave the bento to and something else. It's her first time working part-time at a convenience store, and they throw away more bentos than you can eat. So she doesn't really feel like she's doing anything wrong. Rei mentions that he needs to buy a bento box too, so Aoi suggests he take one. She is pleased and asks him to choose one, smiling at him as she does so. Rei can't believe what is happening. Rei sees the fried chicken and wants to have it too. Aoi says it's dirty, but he stands his ground and says he'll go, his brother will eat it. Aoi asks if it's too much. Does he really hate his brother? Rei tells her he's distant, needs to stock up. He's now punching the wall of the house and continues to shout at his mother. Finally, Aoi asks him to tell her his name, and of course Rei does. She asks if he's free that night and then asks him to show her around the house. Rei acts strangely and asks for permission. She smiles and tells him to stop, because she's the one asking. Rei is over the moon, treating it as a date and immediately thinking about his appearance. He gets home and sees his mother sitting outside. She says it's too noisy at home. Rei apologizes for being late. Rei's mother apologizes for what happened. Rei says it's okay. He also tells his mother that he's going for a walk. She tells him that Minagashi's father has asked him if he will work for him as chief designer after Rei finishes school. He says he hasn't heard anything, so where's all this talk coming from all of a sudden? She also thought Rei might be the chief designer. In this town, if you work all the time, you live in security. To be personally invited by the director is a great honor for an employee. Rei's thoughts on the design position. Rei arrives for his date with Aoi, apologizes for being late and says he will leave his bike somewhere nearby. She asks, why leave it anywhere? We see them riding together through the city at night. Rei looks happy. He asks where he's going. Aoi doesn't know anything here. She asks him to show her the places he usually goes. He takes her to a street where all the shops are lined up in rows. At the end of the street is Ryan, and the locals mostly walk along the street. Our heroes are driving along. Aoi thinks that Tokyo is quite inconvenient, there's so much going on. And Rei mentions that her friend, who is an expert on idols, keeps saying that there's nothing going on in this shithole. Rei makes a sharp turn and asks her to go back. It's all because of his childhood friend he sees ahead. Aoi realizes that they turned back because of the people he bought cigarettes for. Rei remarks that she understands. Besides, their leader is his childhood friend. Rei thought they were good childhood friends. She says that as long as they are in this town, they can't break that bond. And Rei, with a sad face, says that he will never break it. He talks about his worries, that when he finishes school, he will work as a chief designer. Aoi asks him if that's what he wants to do, to which he replies that he would never want to do that. But the dilemma is that Rei can't leave the city, because even if he had Aoi's talents, he wouldn't want to do anything. Aoi asks Rei why he talks about such different things since they met. Rei replies that it's probably because he's someone who will never leave this town. He smiles at Aoi and says he'll never forget how they used to cycle and walk together, as Aoi looks down at her, talking about how the headwaters of this river have become famous because of a recent affair, the suicide chasm. Rei knows about this. He tells her that the otaku friend told her about this place. Rei says she doesn't know the contents. The lovers jumped into the river together after the ascension, by conspiracy. The characters in the novel did the same thing. Rei says it's interesting, but Aoi interrupts and doesn't say a word. But she says it's an enviable fate, because it's a happy death. Silence, a dark sky and a beautiful river. Suddenly, Aoi suggests that Rei climb up. Rei is confused and tells him that it is too sudden. Aoi asks if he wants to. After all, his life has been boring so far. Suddenly there is the sound of an engine, a bus passing them. Adol had made a double ascent with a schoolboy. This news can hit the headlines in a day. Rei doesn't know if she's serious. Until now, he's only lived. He's not sure if he's capable of more. If you're going to die with an idol, you should enjoy life at the very end. Aoi replies that it would be a shame to die at the very end, and then reaches out his hand and calls the protagonist to his house. Rei thinks that if he dies with Aoi Nagi, then he will be happy. Rei remembers Aoi talking to him, and now he sees the beautiful girl in his bed. The apartment, the lights are on. Aoi and Rei kiss. Her tongue is so soft. Rei finally understands what a kiss is. Aoi realizes that our hero is still a virgin loser, asks him about it and offers him a bath. Rei can't believe what's happening. He thinks she's just playing with him. Aoi puts on the clothes from her last debut. She asks him if he realizes that he's going to do it with an idol. She pulls him into bed and he grabs her breasts. He is still in shock that it is Nagi Aoi. He tries to begin to process what has happened, but his excitement prevents him from doing so. Rei apologizes and Aoi tells him to address her as you. We learn Aoi's age. She's 20 years old. Rei says she's pretty serious. She's never been told not to buy cigarettes before. Aoi says everyone tells her she's stupid, and she's sincere. Rei laughs and says that being stupid goes against her image. Rei asks her to take off her clothes. Her blouse is rough and uncomfortable, and her shoes are cold too. Besides, he wants the real her. They do it. After the whole process, they lie on the bed together and Reiji sees the fish and talks about how lonely she is. Aoi says his name is Nagi, just like hers. She offers him a drink and tells him to get one from the fridge, and Reiji is about to ask her if she wants anything when the homeless man Aoi has been feeding comes out. Aoi says he promised he'd be somewhere else today, to which he replies that he lives here too. Rei asks for him, and he turns out to be her husband. Nagi's husband sends him to get dressed. Aoi apologizes for saying he wouldn't be here today. Rei runs off and gets dressed at the same time. What the hell is going on? She tricked me? Why would she do that? Why? Nagi Aoi is married to the homeless guy? Betrayal. It's just an affair? Is this the first time it's happened? He doesn't understand anything. Nothing at all. He thinks back to Aoi's offer to ascend. He doesn't realize if it's a joke or not. If no one had interrupted them, right now, would they be standing here? He makes it home, gets into bed, takes out his mobile phone and looks at the video of the girl. He looks at her body and realizes that he had it with Nagi Aoi, with a real idol. He just has to get it into his head. The morning begins with Grandma wishing everyone a good morning, and his cretin brother yells a swear word about how good it is. Grandma is taken to a daycare center. The woman tells him that they will take care of Grandma and then they leave. Ray is upset because his legs hurt and his mother's legs hurt. And her legs are always swollen, and her shoulders, and her neck, everything hurts. She wishes she could feel a bit better. Ray hopes she'll hold out until he finds a job. He mentions Aoi's offer again. Ray's mother asks him where her bike is, but he has left it at Nagi's. He starts to lose his way and thinks of something when he hears something ringing. Ding, ding, ding. The homeless man arrives at their house. He greets Ray's mother, who is surprised and asks if she knows him. The homeless man's name is Navo. He was Yuko's classmate in middle school. Navo comes to return Ray's bike, which he announces loudly to the family. Ray starts to freak out and thinks he's finished, but Navo decides to lie. He says he was in a hurry and that Ray borrowed it. He lies that he asked him to wait and that he left. While he was thinking about what to do, he noticed a sign that said Reiji Kurose, the name of Ray's mother. So he came here, thinking he was Yuko's son, and he turned out to be right. He asks the main character's name and thanks him for yesterday. Ray doesn't know what he means. Yuko asks Navo if he's on holiday, to which he replies that it's only a temporary shelter. He's been here for half a month. Navo says goodbye to the characters and apologizes for disturbing them at this hour. Ray's mother asks if he met him by chance, and Ray replies that he did. Aoi asks him not to get involved with him, as he is a bad man. It's raining outside. Ray sits in school and wonders why Nagi Aoi is married to his mother's classmate. Does that mean he's 46 and she's 20? Turns out she's married to someone 26 years her senior. Nagi is married to an evil man. He is beckoned to go home. They have been dismissed early that day because the typhoon is approaching. They have to go to the shelter. Ray walks through the streets and comes to the edge of the abyss. He doesn't want to go home, but he has no money. He doesn't know what to do. He imagines Aoi standing next to him, offering to do the ascent again. Ray's friend Chaco apparently finds him and shouts that it's dangerous. Only a child would look down from a bridge during a typhoon. She invites him over to her place to eat scones and read manga. Ray agrees. At the same time, Chaco takes him to his home and his father's shop, all of which are closed due to the approaching typhoon. Chaco invites him in through the back door because her parents are scolding her for being alone with a guy. They used to come over early when they were kids. Why are they talking about it now? Chaco takes off her tights. She's disgusted. Her feet are all wet. Chaco yells at Ray because she thinks he thinks her legs are fat. She asks if he's okay. He's a bit weird today. Ray says he's fine. Chaco shows him the short story she told him about. It's called Spring Coffin. He looks at the author and sees Aoi's husband. It's Navo. Ray remembers Aoi saying that Chaco was an interesting man. He asks what Navo is like. Chaco replies that she loves his books very much, but he seems to have problems as a person. She remembers that he was recently divorced because of an affair with an actress who became famous. Worst of all, one of his mistresses overdosed and died. Chaco says he's a bastard, someone you shouldn't meet in real life. Why didn't Ray think of this before? Why does Nagi Aoi wants to die? That was the first time Ray heard kind words. She's an idol, a guide to take him to heaven. Or is that what Ray thought? After all, she's the one with a reason to die. Chaco saw the news that Nagi Aoi is taking an indefinite break. It says it's so she can focus on her mental health. Chaco laments that Nagi took a break for nothing, since she has become so famous. She was born beautiful, how could she leave then? Everyone was singing her songs. But after a moment, she just says she has to find another girl to follow her. He imagines her as a lonely doll in a fishbowl, and Ray thinks about how lonely she is and how Aoi has suffered all her life. No one understood her. It's too early to speculate. He thinks of the Nagi fish and how Aoi told him about it. This fish is just as lonely in an aquarium. It suffers just like its owner. Ray says goodbye to Chaco and goes home. The typhoon is still raging outside, and Ray wonders what will happen when she is here. Ray meets Gon. He gets out of Mangashi's company transport and goes to the shop. Ray is worried that if they realize that Adel is in this town, something terrible will happen. Jen takes him under his arm and tells his colleagues that Ray will be working with them when you graduate. These guys will be responsible for him. They tell him to train while he can. Gon tells him that they will all be his mentors, so he should listen to what they have to say. He scolds him, saying that his mother must have begged his father for Gon's father to hire him. Gon offers to get along with them, at least at work, for the sake of their friendship. He remembers his mother's news that she had found a job for him, and his mother's mysterious tiredness. He realizes that he must do his best. He smiles and says he looks forward to working with them. Rei notices Aoi watching him from around the corner of the shop. She starts towards the entrance of the shop, but Rei intercepts her and grabs her arm. He pulls her arm off and runs off with her. Gon watches as Rei runs off with Io, listening to his colleague's words. The typhoon is still raging and raining. Our protagonist apologizes to Ajao for his impertinence. He had stolen it while he was working. Aao silently takes off his sweatshirt and lets it go. The sweatshirt flies far away and Aao declares with a smile on his face that it's a great day to die. Rei asks Nagi if she knows where the abyss of love is. Io doesn't know where it is. But that's not what your husband wrote about, Rei asks her, to which she interjects what he said and then says they should go upriver as it's still shallow. Rei asks why she should die with him, Nag dash. He interrupts, seeing Gon's car and then remembering what happened in the shop car park. He yells at him that he's not going to work for his daddy. He will die today, and he will be king of this town forever. He doesn't care anymore, shouts that they'll see each other again, and waves him off. He shuts up. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. He starts to laugh. He always wanted to grow up. Something clicked in his brother and now he's going mad. Grandma has just started to degenerate. He thought they could do something together, that they would get through this with his mother. He has always been told that everything is the way it should be. It wasn't his fault that his brother failed his exams. He was always told that he was smarter, or that the hero was just stupid. He didn't want to look after his grandmother. She doesn't love him. They forced him, told him they wanted to die. They wanted to relax. They would always ask Rei to buy whatever his brother wanted. They didn't even think about him. They told him to clean up after his grandmother when he came home from school. But the chair just looked clean. He's sure they were just waiting for him to come back, just for that. He's sure that they know that he's a Gon slave, and that they even said that they didn't ask his daddy for anything. Aoi takes his hand and asks why they can't just leave everything behind. Why don't they just run away from the city? He never thought about it. But why not? It's your life after all, Reiji, Aoi says with a smile on his face. Rei remembers Chaco's words. He asks what she would do if he said he didn't want to die with her. She lets go of his hand and says she would just go on and die. But why does she want to die? Aoi has no reason to want to die like Rei. She just has no reason to live. She's not here now. Even if Aoi leaves town, she won't show up. She won't find her. They stop at the shore. Aoi is tired. Rei asks permission to hug her one last time and then asks permission to touch her breasts. She lifts her top and asks if Rei wants someone to love him. He relishes the moment and tells Aoi, who replies that she wants nothing more either. He thanks Rei for coming to the city. Hi, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let's get 300 likes to continue, and also write the word abyss, so I understand that you have watched this video to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you later and bye bye.